What is up, YouTube? It's the Fantasy Bros. Today we're going to be talking some more buys and sells going into week 4. All right, Aaron, how you doing?
I am great. Can't complain. Lost in almost every league last week, but that's fine.
It was a weird week, man.
So everybody was super low
Yeah.
scoring. It made no sense. But you'll see a consistent theme this week for my buys. So my first two buys are kind of conjoined. It would be Leonard Fournette and Mike Evans. The reason I picked these two, Fournette has still an insane workload, just like we talked about last week, and is still yet to see a touchdown. That's not going to remain. He's touching the ball over 20 times a game. You can't do that and not score touchdowns. They had 0 receivers this week. They're also missing a starting left tackle this week against a pretty decent Green Bay defense. All of those will be corrected as Mike Evans comes back from suspension, which he will this game. As Godwin comes back, as Julio comes back, they should get their left tackle back this week. Better offense equals more scoring opportunities. Leonard Fournette's touching the ball more than pretty much any running back in the league, except for maybe Joe Mixon. And yeah, touchdowns will come. Evans, he's coming off a suspension, and since he was suspended in the middle or ejected from the previous week, he had a low scoring. So that's 2 back-to-back bad weeks. You might could sneak him off somebody's roster for fairly cheap if they soured on him based on how bad Bucks offensive looked.
Yep. That offense has scored very little points this year. I'm looking right now, and they are bottom 10 in points scored, and that's definitely not going to stay for the whole year. We know getting Mike Evans back, getting Chris Godwin in the mix, and getting Julio for a few games here and there. I'm sure he's going to be injured, but they haven't had anybody recently, and we know that offense is going to get better. Hopefully Tom Brady can get back to at least a fraction of what he was these past couple of years, and I think the Bucks offense is a good candidate for buys. All right, my first buy is Joe Mixon. This is my most. This is the one I have the most conviction in. I think you should absolutely be trying to go out and buy Joe Mixon right now. There is no doubt in my mind that Joe Mixon, barring an injury, is going to bounce back in a big way. If you go look at his peripheral numbers, he is killing it. Like, his workload is insane. It's better than we thought it would be going into the year, and he was already a first round pick. So if anything, he's kind of exceeding that expectation. It's just the points haven't showed up yet. If you go look at his numbers, like, yes, he had a couple down weeks, but we got to take advantage of that, right? Because fantasy is, at the end of the day, luck, and sometimes you don't hit good luck. And before that, he had 2 decent weeks, so we're going to take advantage of this. He is 5th at running back in snap share. He's 4th in opportunity share. He's 1st in weighted opportunity share, which weights it towards receptions and targets because those give you more points. So when you factor that in, he is actually 1st in the weighted opportunities per game at the running back position. He's 3rd in carries. He's 4th in targets. He's 7th in red zone touches. He hasn't got any touchdowns so far this year, but those are going to come if you're 10th in red zone touches, and he's gotten a goal line carry as well. So it's not like he's not. I mean, we know he's going to get some goal line carries. That offense looked better last week, and hopefully if Joe Burrow can continue to bounce back from a slow start, I think that Joe Mixon is a huge buy right now.
Yep, completely agree. Joe Mixon was a buy for me last week. He would remain a buy for me this week. Any way you can get Joe Mixon on your team that you're not overpaying, I would do so. I mean, the offense is just too much talent, and he gets too many touches to not score touchdowns.
He is running a surprising amount of routes, too. Like, he's always been seen as this guy who doesn't get the receiving work because he doesn't play on third downs. He does play on some third downs, and while it's true that who's the third down running back there?
Samaje P. Ryan.
Yeah, Samaje P. Ryan gets in there. The reality is that Joe Mixon still gets receiving work on 1st and 2nd down, and he mixes it in on third down too. He's ran 81 routes in 3 games so far this year. I mean, that's
more than some receivers.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good. The numbers are there. The production is gonna come, and he looks fine. So you don't have to worry about that. I would be trying to upgrade one of your pieces that you're worried about. I would try to flip one of the sells. We'll talk about it later, but I would flip Clyde and try to get a person like Joe Mixon. That would be such a great trade. And trust the process.
Right, my next buy would be Treylon Burks. if you look at his numbers as far as efficiency per route run, he is in the elite of the most elite tier. He's the number one rookie wide receiver this year, and I believe of like the past decade as far as efficiency per route run. He got tackled on the 1 yard line in this past weekend's game. Had he converted that to a score, he would have had double-digit PPR fantasy points. Unfortunately, he didn't. But after the game, their offensive coordinator said that they will and need to get him more touches, and they will get him the ball more. So coming off of a 2 or 3 point game that he just had, I would try to target him. I mean, don't overpay for him, but if you can sneak him, maybe do a 2-for-1 and then say, well, hey, if you just add him in, I'll take it. Or, I mean, you can target him specifically if you have depth at running back or depth at receiver and you just trade your 4th or 5th running back or receiver for him. I would definitely do so. His midway point of the year and beyond could be explosive.
Yeah, and this was a week where you probably expected a bounce back game from Treylon Burks if you were holding him on your bench. You know, you had him stashed. And so a lot of owners right now are probably very disappointed and are worried if they're not watching the games, if they're not paying attention to what's going on behind the scenes. They might be worried about the production, understandably. But, you know, this is definitely one of those second half players. And like you said, all the metrics around, you know, efficiency for his routes are amazing. And that's what you want to see in a rookie, right? We're looking for how good he looks on the field. And those numbers, the amount of routes he's run, the amount of snaps he's in, those are going to improve, and he's going to get more looks in the offense. And so that's the only way that you can evaluate these rookies correctly, is just see how well they're playing on the field, and eventually their opportunities will come. So, yeah, totally in on buying Treylon Burks. Again, don't overpay, because managers are probably thinking like, do I drop this guy this week? So you don't have to give much to get Treylon Burks. All right, my buys are kind of a combo, and they're the Green Bay running backs, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I would personally probably target A.J. Dillon because I think he's cheaper. The explosive 32-point game for Aaron Jones is going to make him a little bit more expensive, combined with his second-round draft capital. So I think A.J. Dillon is a perfect target for trades right now. His carries have been consistent. He has got 10, 18, and 12 carries, as well as being somewhat involved in the passing game. He's got 6 targets in week 1, 3 in week 2, and 3 in week 3. So not bad, numbers there. He's had 2 somewhat down weeks, but they just played the Buccaneers, who have shut down every single offense that they've played against. So when you're looking at Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon's down week, I wouldn't read too much into it. You talked about Treylon Burks going down in the 1. Well, we saw Aaron Jones fumble on the goal line and what could have been a touchdown that saved his fantasy performance. So, yeah, I would look at these guys as both heavy buys, just playing against the Bucs. That's a theme we've seen all year, that the Bucs have shut people down, and I definitely see a bounce back for both these players.
Yep, I agree. I'm in on both of those guys. Should be an elite offense with a fairly good defense, so they should never be chasing too many points. So I think he's pretty locked in, at least for double-digit touches every week. Like you said, great point. Buccaneers shut down literally everybody they play so far. So if you see them on your schedule, if you can bench, I would bench those guys unless it's an elite of the elite player. Then you just kind of got to take the lower scoring week, but I wouldn't factor it too much.
All right, let me ask you some questions on A.J. Dillon. Who would you rather have rest of season, A.J. Dillon or James Robinson?
Oh, that's tough. Surprisingly, I'm going to go with James Robinson.
Yeah.
My reasoning is their offense seems to be clicking pretty well. Obviously, they don't have Aaron Rodgers, and they're not what we projected to be an extremely good offense coming into the year, but they're looking good. Their schedule is way easier. I mean, you get to play Houston twice. They haven't played them,
true.
I don't think. So you still get them twice. The Titans' defense isn't looking like world beaters by any means, so you get them twice. I mean, you play Indy twice, which isn't the worst matchup. It's not great, but it's not Tampa Bay or anything, so it's not crazy. And I mean, he's definitely the lead dog in that backfield. ETN is getting touches, but it's more in passing game, more scat back role. James Robinson is getting tons of carries, and he's had a touchdown in every game so far.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about some sell highs, and I don't think that's one of our sell high targets. I mean, James Robinson is legit. Don't doubt James Robinson. Every time you do, you will be embarrassed because he has proved the haters wrong every time. I think if I'm thinking about trades for someone like A.J. Dillon, I might package Ramondre Stevenson off a big week with somebody on your bench and try to upgrade him. Same with Damian Harris. Players like that, who Miles Sanders even, I would rather have A.J. Dillon. So if you can package a player like that, I would not give up a player who's performing right now for one of these speculative trade targets, right? Definitely don't do that.
Would you rather have Jeff Wilson or A.J. Dillon?
Oh, definitely A.J. Dillon. As a 49ers fan, I think Jeff Wilson is definitely going to have some big weeks, and I think it'll be better than it was last week. You know, I think he'll have some more explosive games. But I think A.J. Dillon is safer for the full season. I guess if you really need some wins now, you maybe could go for Jeff Wilson, but even then, personally, I'm rolling with A.J. Dillon. All right, so do you have any more buys?
No, that's all my buys.
Well, then I got a quick one real quick before we move on to the sells, and that is the obvious one. If you watch football, buy Justin Jefferson, guys. I'm sure you can't. There's a good chance that the owner does not want to trade him. Week 1 was so explosive that nobody can forget that, and he's such a, he's such a star right now in football in general, and everybody knows him. But if somebody's panicking off one mediocre and one bad week, his worst week of his career, including when he was a rookie, then you need to buy. I mean, value him as a top 5 wide receiver going forward. There's no way he's anything else, and they're going to find a way to get him the ball. The volume is still there. He's still getting about 10 targets a game, which you love to see. And, he's an elite route runner. He's great in space. He's got everything. So, and he's young, and he's doesn't have a history of health concerns. So, come on. We got to buy Justin Jefferson. Do anything you can to try to get this man on your team.
I have him on a few teams, and he's not going anywhere.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Someone's willing to overpay at the wazoo,
right?
He's not.
But I would try. This is the only time you're going to have even a chance. So just quickly, just try to buy Justin Jefferson. All right.
If you got a team that's 0-3 with him, don't say it's impossible, because I am 0-3 with him on one of my teams.
It's definitely possible.
Check.
You lost week 1.
I was the second high score and lost.
Yeah.
Love to see it.
All right. Moving on to sells. Who's your first sell?
All right. So my first sell is Cordarrelle Patterson. Now, do not sell low. Only sell if you're getting at value or trading up. Cordarrelle Patterson has been excellent so far this year. No one thought he could do it. Everyone thought last year was a fluke, but he proved us all wrong again. He's had 2 20-plus point performances out of 3 games, which is excellent, but they've had pretty easy schedule. I know the Rams matchup wasn't easy, but the other 2 pretty easy matchups. So his schedule gets a lot harder moving forward. He gets Tampa Bay twice. He gets the Saints twice. That's 4 games against pretty difficult defenses. He gets the Panthers twice, which is an average defense, but they're probably slightly above average. They're still a decently tough matchup. And then if you look at his fantasy playoff schedule, his first 2 round games are super difficult. His championship matchup is really great. So if you make it to your championship, that's awesome. But also, I believe the Falcons are 1-2 currently. They just drafted a rookie quarterback. I would imagine, unless they start winning a ton of games, they're going to move to their rookie quarterback some point this year, which could affect it. May not. We don't know. We haven't seen it yet, but that could affect his production, as I would assume it would. So that's just some things to think about. If you could trade Cordarrelle Patterson and get top 12 running back value right now, I would cash it in.
Yeah. And, I mean, we all saw last year that he did fall off in his fantasy value as the year went on. I could see something similar happening this year as their sort of hopes of being anything or making the playoffs this year fall apart, which I predict that they probably will. Yeah, so if you could trade Cordarrelle, maybe package him to get one of our buys in Joe Mixon or Leonard Fournette or Aaron Jones, absolutely do that. I mean, again, you might have to package some, maybe a flex play or the top guy on your bench, but if you can upgrade that significantly, I would definitely make that deal. So moving on to my first buy, it is sell. My first sell. It is Chase Edmonds. Now, Chase Edmonds is looking very, very bad. I really believed in him going into this year. I don't know if you're going to agree with this take, but it's just the numbers are not there, man. Like, his rushing yard numbers so far, he's got 12 for 25, 5 for 33, and 6 for 21 in his first 3 weeks. But when you go look at the fantasy finishes, you might be able to get some value out of him. In PPR, he's got 10.5, 5.1, and 15.7 off a 2-touchdown week where he only touched the ball 7 times. So, the odds of him, getting that touchdown efficiency is pretty low going forward. And Raheem Mostert is trending up in touches and he is trending down. So it's looking scary, but off a 2-touchdown week, I think this is like one of the best values you're going to get for him right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do agree. I drafted a lot of Chase Edmonds. I like to target him in the later rounds. So, unfortunately, I have him on a lot of teams. I thought they would use him a lot more in the passing game than they are, but they're actually throwing it downfield a lot more than what I thought.
Yep.
Mostert has a bigger role than what I thought. Granted, he could get injured at literally any second.
That's true.
But Edmonds coming off of if you score 2 touchdowns, which is 12 fantasy points, and you only end with 15, that's a problem.
That's a good point.
Like, that means between all your catches and yards, you only got 3 points.
Right.
That's not good.
Yeah.
That means the opportunity is not there. We've seen Mostert out-touch him 2 out of the 3 possible games.
Mm-hmm.
So I would try to sell him if you can. If you look at his Cardinals career, I'm pretty sure that the most touchdowns he's ever had in a season is 4. And he just had 2 yesterday. So he's half of his career high in touchdowns in a single season.
Yeah, so for Chase Edmonds, either straight up or maybe a package with a weaker player, I would be targeting players like A.J. Dillon or Breece Hall. I think those are 2 good targets for him right now. Some of these younger players, these younger running backs might be a good target.
So Jets running backs are interesting to me right now. Zach Wilson just got announced that he's coming back and he's going to be the starter this week.
Mm-hmm.
If we've learned anything, it's that Joe Flacco targets the running back position more than any other quarterback in history of ever. So with Zach Wilson coming back, they might be seeing less targets. Mm-hmm. I know, like, the first 3 games, I want to say the running back saw like 40 or 50-something targets, which is just crazy between the 2.
That's crazy.
I would imagine that number is going to go way down with a mobile quarterback that won't throw to the running backs is great. And if you look at their next, 8 games, they're all extremely tough matchups. They get New England twice, Buffalo twice, and 1 or 2 other hard teams in there. So if you trade for Breece Hall, I'm not sure how many times you're actually going to want to start him. But if you can upgrade from Edmonds to Breece Hall, I would probably do that, especially if you could do it straight up.
Yeah, I will say with the announcement of the quarterback change, it's scary, but when you're dealing with players this low in the rankings, I feel like he has a lot more upside than what Chase Edmonds has at this point.
Talent wins out, and he's definitely more talented.
All right, who's your next sell?
So my next sell is Michael Thomas. Again, just like the first sell, don't sell him just to sell. Only sell if you can get equal value or obviously trade up. But you can probably get good name value for him right now. But he just got injured, which is already a knock. He's been injured twice this year already, and he's been dealing with injuries the past 2 years, so that's not good. The first 2 weeks when he had good games, they were both carried by touchdowns. He's never been known as a touchdown scorer and receiver in his career, and he already has 3 through 2.5 games. So maybe kind of a red flag. If those touchdowns swing a different direction, that's going to vastly lower his fantasy points. So if you could trade him somebody that maybe values, here's the name Michael Thomas, sees the touchdowns that he's putting up. Yeah, he had 22 points and I think 15 points the first 2 weeks. And then he had like 7 or 8 this week while going out with an injury, which doesn't kill your team or anything. That's still decent.
Right.
If someone sees that and then values the name of Michael Thomas as still a top 15 receiver, definitely go do that. If you could trade Michael Thomas and somebody else and get like a Deontay Johnson or something like that, I would definitely do that.
Yeah, the injury is extremely concerning to me. If I don't have him on any teams because of the risk that I saw at his ADP, was just slightly too much. It was seriously just slightly too much. But if I had him on any teams, I would be looking to move him because the injury concern is scary for him. I mean, his history with it is not a good one, and he's one of those players that could end up providing you no value if you just hold him on your roster. Now, obviously, like you said, don't panic because the upside is still there, and you need to play smart and not just panic sell for nothing. You need to get value for him, like you said. I would go for a strong wide receiver 2 for him. But yeah, I agree that it's still definitely a sell off of some pretty good performances. All right, so moving on to my last sell, and this is one that I think everybody is in agreement who cares about fantasy right now. If you're big into fantasy, you know that you should sell Clyde Edwards-Helaire. This guy has been putting up points each and every week. I mean, what is happening? He has scored 15 or more points every single week. The value you could get for Clyde right now is probably pretty good. And the players who drafted Clyde are probably a little bit less experienced, in my opinion. Unless you saw something I didn't, I would guess that you might actually be able to sell him right now because the players who like him, they don't know that, he's not going to continue this because the volume is not there. He's in a 3-headed monster that somehow he's still, providing value in, but it's not going to hold up. This last week, 7 rushes for 0 yards, but he still put up 15 points. How is this possible? He is being outsnapped by McKinnon. What more do we have to say? He's got 3 touchdowns in 3 weeks. There's no way this is gonna keep up. He's not even the goal line back. He's just sort of being mixed in with all the other backs. It's just a huge sell for me.
Agreed. I mean, he's outproducing his touches right now, which you would think that, it's because they blew the Cardinals out, so they didn't give him many touches. Okay, we'll come back this week. They were in a very competitive game with the Colts the entire game, which was super close. And he still only ran the ball 7 times for 0 yards, mind you, and then happened to get a touchdown, which completely saved his day. So, I mean, I get it. You look at a running back that's put up 15 points 3 weeks in a row. He's on an excellent offense that should give him scoring opportunities. But I just don't think he's that good. And he's producing his workload right now. And I would rather invest in workload versus getting lucky touchdown production.
Yeah, I think he's a good flex play just because of the offense, like you're saying. And while I don't think his talent is any more special than the other running backs he's competing with in McKinnon or Pacheco, he's going to have some opportunities. And so I think he's a decent flex play. We're not saying bench him or drop him, but just the fact that he scored 15 points in 3 straight weeks, I think you can get value in him given that all other running backs are underperforming for the most part.
Yeah, definitely don't bench him. Definitely don't drop him.
Right.
Play him if you have him. But if you can dangle him plus another flex player or your top bench guy and try to get an upgraded piece,
yeah,
I would do that 100%.
Yeah, get one of these top tier talents at running back. Like seriously, try to flip Clyde into any of those guys, and you're gonna look back and be like, I'm really glad I sold when I did. I'm very confident in that on Clyde.
Mm-hmm.
All right, do you have any more sells?
Nope.
All right.
That's it for me.
I actually thought of one other buy while we were recording because I was thinking who I would trade Michael Thomas for, and then I thought I should have mentioned this. So this is a bonus buy. If you stayed to the end of the video, congrats. You're about to get some crazy advice right here. You need to buy my boy, Rashod Bateman. This guy is good. And last week, he had a down week. Before that, he had 2 pretty good weeks, right? Well, I think you could buy him at a pretty low cost right now. In my opinion, he's a really talented player on a really high-scoring offense who's going to get the ball more. But you might be able to buy because people might be concerned after a down week. And then his first 2 weeks, pretty much all the production came off of 2 really deep touchdowns. If you take away those 2 deep touchdowns, he seems like a really boom-bust play. But I see the upside to him actually being a consistent fantasy option down the stretch. He looks good on the field. I think he's clearly the number 1 receiver for Lamar Jackson, who's making an MVP run right now, and his passing numbers look great. Even if you take away his rushing numbers, he's top 5 in fantasy production this year. So he is doing, Lamar Jackson is doing really well, and I think Rashod Bateman is going to only go up from here. Last week he played the Patriots, and they gave him the treatment like he was the wide receiver 1, and they really focused him, and it worked. And I think that's actually a good sign that defenses respect him, and that I think he's going to get more work going forward.
Yeah, I like Rashod Bateman. Like you pointed out, his workload isn't that great. I want to say the most catches he's had is like 3 or 4 in a single game, but he's absolutely electric. He's had like a 55-yard touchdown and a 75-yard touchdown already through 3 games. Dude put up 59 yards on 2 catches last week.
Yeah,
he's just a deep threat. Whenever he touches the ball, he could take it to the house at any moment. So if you could buy low on him right now, I definitely would.
Yeah, I think you're going to be able to. I really do. Not everybody. Some people might believe in him, but there's going to be a good number of owners right now who are thinking like, oh gosh, I need to sell while I can because he's only getting 3 catches a game. But, I think you can buy him super low because of that. And, after this down week, they're starting to see the floor break, and I think you need to take advantage of that. And
another reason he could be having so low catches right now is because of how many big plays the Ravens offenses has scored. If you look at week 1, they scored 2 bombs, 2 long touchdowns, a 55-yarder to Devin Duvernay, and then a really long one to Bateman. The next week against the Dolphins, he scored a 75-yard touchdown. Lamar had a 79-yard rushing touchdown. So you look at those plays, and when you're scoring those long plays, that's taking the drive away. So you're not having a drive of 8+ plays to where he could have gotten 2 or 3 targets on that drive. All those are going away in one play. So if you take a couple of those bang plays out and have more sustained drives, maybe his target percentage goes up.
Yeah, I could definitely see that too. And like I said, that passing offense, I think it's going to be good this year. Surprisingly, we thought they might lean a little bit more on the run, but if Lamar keeps playing like he's been playing, I don't see why him and the top 2 receiving options in Baltimore are clearly him and Mark Andrews, right? I think that's going to be the same going forward, and you definitely want pieces in that offense. So I would trade and buy low.
Definitely.
All right. Is that all we got?
That's it.
All right. Well, thank y'all for tuning in to the Fantasy Bros, and we'll see you next week.